Previously I made a video showing how to build the kRPC C++ client library for use with Visual Studio in a Windows environment. That video is outdated and not very good now, so I'm going to show you a much easier and more straightforward method to build that library now. Okay, so first we'll start with what you'll need to get this working. You'll need CMake installed, at least version 3.10. You'll need Visual Studio 2019, doesn't matter which edition, but it does need to be 2019. You could use 2022, but that will require some changes in some of the scripts, but you can do it. You'll need 7-zip installed, and you'll need to add it to the path environment variable. I'm not going to cover that. It's pretty straightforward to do. You can look it up pretty easily. You'll need a kRPC zip file, which has been built from a GitHub action located at my kRPC repository. That will contain a compiled kRPC full library. And you'll need PowerShell build scripts from the kRPC-cpp library repo. And there is a few other things in that repo that will help you with this as well. So I'll first show you how to get this kRPC zip file. So if you go to the repo here, which is my repo, you'll see if you go and click on actions that I've got a CI action that runs. Now this CI action will run a build job that will set up the Bazel environment and unpack the libraries and compile it, and then it'll also, most importantly, upload an artifact at the end of that. So what that means is that we've got a compiled artifact right here, which we can download. Now you will need to be logged in, I believe, into GitHub to actually access this, but you can just click on that and it will download the actual zip file. I've already downloaded it once, so I've got a copy, but it'll download that zip file. So that's the zip file that we need. And this GitHub action comes from another user of kRPC, Ben. His fork has the same thing, so you can use his as well. I've done some tests with his library. So we've got our library. Now we need our build scripts. So they're not located in kRPC repository, they're located in this other repository that I have called kRPC-cpp. And what you'll need is this folder here, client. There's some GitHub workflows in here, but you don't need to touch that. Those are just, they're not running at the moment properly. So in here you'll find 3 PowerShell script files and a CMake list and a source. If you just do a clone or a download zip of this entire repo, and then get the contents of that client and put it somewhere, then you can do the rest of this from there. So now we've got this folder right here. So we've got our kRPC CPP client folder. That's where I've unzipped everything. So you can see I've got an include directory, but it's actually empty. You don't need this, but if you're building a project, then you will want to have an include directory. I've got a source with a very simple script here, which is literally one of the example scripts from the kRPC documentation. And then I've got these, there's my kRPC library that I downloaded earlier. I've got a CMake list, which is just for this test project. You don't need to worry about that at all for now. So I've got 3 PowerShell scripts here. The first one is a script to build protobuf, and it will build it in place, and then it will remove the files that it doesn't need, and it will dump it in a dependencies directory here. And this bit here tells you that it's using Visual Studio 2019. If you wanted to use 2022, then you'll need to look up the I think it might be 2022. I don't actually know, but you'll need to look that up to figure out what it actually is. The next one is the kRPC CPP PowerShell script, which compiles the kRPC library and does the same thing pretty much. It does compile a release with debug info version as well, although in this particular example we're not going to use that. That'll get removed. But if that's what you want to do, then there are ways you can get your release with debug info as well. And then the final PowerShell script just builds a simple test app, which is using this and these files in here. So how do we run these PowerShell scripts? We will need to use the developer PowerShell for VS19 here. So we'll just run that as admin. Right. So now we've got our PowerShell window. So we'll close this, zoom this in a bit so you can see what's going on. Right, so the first thing we want to do is go to our folder where we put all our files. So let's have a look what's in here. Yep, this is the correct one. So if you haven't run PowerShell scripts before, you'll need to set your execution policy, and that's why we started it up as an administrator, because we're going to need to do that. And you can do that just by doing this command here, set execution policy unrestricted, and it'll ask you questions about whether you actually want to do it. You can disable this later, but we're just going to say yes. And now we are in our kRPC CPP client folder in my case. In your case, it can be whatever you like. So we're going to execute the protobuf script just like that. And this script will download the protobuf library, and then it will create the using CMake the project for Visual Studio, and then it will compile that project, that solution, and then it will move all of the files to where we want it to be. Now this will take quite a long time, it might take up to 20 minutes, so you'll just have to wait. Okay, so we've finished our compilation of protobuf, and you can see we've got a new folder here called dependencies. If we open that, so protobuf, that's got all the files that we need there. So the next thing we're going to do is compile our kRPC library like this, and that will download the ACO library and then link to the protobuf library that we've already compiled. Right, so that's done. So now we've got a kRPC CPP library and the ASIO library in here as well. And we've also got the protobuf definitions in here, which has been moved in as part of that previous step. The script does it for us automatically. So now we can build this test app and see what we get. So this will generate our solution for us, and then it will also compile it. So we'll see that it built our application there. Okay, so now we've got our a little craft loaded up. It's one of the default stock crafts in Kerbal Space Program. We've got our kRPC server running right here. It's just a default one. Everything's kept default. So let's go over to our folder, go into the build folder, and here you can see the demo solution that we built. Go into release, and then let's open a PowerShell window. And then let's run our demo program. So there we go. And there you go. So it connected and it read the value out that it was supposed to. Let's go back up and open this with Visual Studio. So we've got our kRPC demo solution open now in Visual Studio. And if we go over to here, we'll see our kRPC demo project. If we open that up, get the main.cpp source file, and we can see what our program actually did, which was to connect to kRPC server using the default settings, get the active vessel back, get the flight info, and then print out the mean altitude, which is exactly what we saw happen when we run it before. So that's that. We've got it running, we can connect, and then you can expand using this particular solution if you like. If you don't like using a CMake style project, then you can build your own, make your own in Visual Studio and then import or all the libraries and the include files that you need. But that's a bit beyond the scope of this. For this purpose, it does what you need to do. You can write code, you can add source files. You're on your way.